But I would say I don't think being an entrepreneur is like genetic. I think sometimes people are predisposed to experimenting, and some entrepreneurs may not care as much about failure. I certainly didn't. But I would say from a little age, I was just curious and imaginative and had good parents.
So how do you decide what project to work on? Because I'm sure you're the kind of guy that has a lot of ideas.
Yeah, so about 2 years ago, I started a startup studio. Have you guys heard of startup studios before? Okay, it's like a merger between a venture capital fund and an incubator. So you can start a bunch of businesses in your studio and see which ones are getting traction, and then kind of double down on the ones that are, doing really well. And so 2 years ago, I started 5 companies at the exact same time. One was a company called Icon that was 3D printing houses. Well, that's what we were hoping to do. It's kind of an idea on a napkin. Another one was, have you guys seen the movie Ready Player One? Do you know those glasses that they put on where it shines an image onto your retina? That was another one that we started. Then we started a one called Passenger and one called Native. And I don't want to bore you with the details, but we started a lot of businesses right at the same time. And Sandy was kind of a friend during that time, trying to point me in the right direction at Austin Technology Incubator, which is amazing. And the thing that happened to me, so I'm a firm believer of just like experimenting, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Like it's no big deal. And so we had a couple that worked. We started and sold one within 6 months called Pepper. And the Ready Player One business called Passenger is still going. And when Icon took off, and I can share a little bit more about that in a minute, the other ones I just had to put on the shelf because I was just too busy, and this was obviously the one that I needed to focus on. So pretty much all of my attention is focused on solving homelessness right now through Icon. Did I answer the question correctly?
Yes, sure. Kind of. So what I was trying to get at is, like, when you're looking at a bunch of projects, you have a bunch of ideas, how do you decide what to pursue? You decided to pursue 5 at once and started a startup studio, which is one way to sort of tackle it, is just like get all these ideas going at once. A lot of times, normal humans have to like pick one thing and try to do it, and you do 5, we do 1. But no, I mean, it just obviously right now it feels like with Icon you're following your heart and you're trying to solve this really big problem. Is that how do we find our way to the thing that we should be working on as individuals?
There's no right or wrong way to tackle this, and so everybody has different stories on their own startup journeys and businesses that they've been a part of, and maybe you've got an idea that's burning, but you haven't made the jump to start it yet. In my case, the ones that are the most exciting and the ones that I have the most energy to actually like go for, it takes a lot of courage to start a business. And I think entrepreneurs are very heroic. You got to put yourself out there. You got to get told no a bunch. You get a lot of people that think you're an idiot. Most people tell you nice things to your face, and then they're like, that's really stupid. And so it takes a lot of courage. But the ones that are my kind of heuristic, is it like a really big problem that you would be glad to dedicate the next few years of your life to, even if you fail? And if you can answer that in the affirmative, then you should do it. And is there some type of, not to get too poetic here, but what is the higher good that you're after? Is it SaaS for SaaS sake, if you're starting a SaaS business? Or is it like, if we solve this B2B friction, then these people will be healed? And so like imagining the highest and best use for whatever you're doing feels like a good use of like a bellwether of determining not to do it. I just see a lot of entrepreneurs. I've coached hundreds of entrepreneurs, and a lot of times they convince themselves that the thing they're doing is like, there's 2 ways to fall off the horse. To convince your thing that the thing you're doing is the ultimate thing, and then also to just pursue something because it's really convenient. And the people that choose like the convenient path often flame out because it's hard as hell to start a company. And the people that put themselves in kind of the center of the story and make it too ultimate to some degree end up becoming too attached to the thing and aren't like stewarding the idea like you should, but their identity is completely wrapped up in the idea, and that ends up flaming out in a very different direction. So, yeah.
My friend Ash Moria says, love the problem, not the solution. You know, so don't get too hung up on your actual solution when really you need to pay attention to what the customer's problem is and never sort of relent on that and be willing to change the solution. You know, so stay focused. Another thing I've heard Brett Hurt say, I think he said it when he was up here on stage, was that we have a tendency to think too small. And you mentioned tackling really big ideas, but he was specifically talking about Austin and how we need to think bigger with our ideas and go after things that are more impactful. So it sounds like you're in agreement in terms of deciding how to pursue ideas. Go for big world-changing ideas.
Yeah, and not everything has to be big and world-changing. I think all of us can look inside of our hearts and find pain. And anytime there's pain, there's something there, you know, and that may manifest itself in a nonprofit or a for-profit. But a lot of times you just follow your heart a little bit. If you experience something or you've had some consistent experiences that feel painful, shameful, or you've observed pain in a community, there's something there that you should like check out and learn a little bit more. And I think one of the best things to do on this is like read literary fiction, because I think sometimes it gives you the vocabulary and the imagination to understand the pain in more dimensions. As an entrepreneur, I've got a lot of entrepreneurs that will ask me what books they need to read. I'm like, you're not going to like this, but go read East of Eden. You know, pick up a good Steinbeck novel or J.R. Tolkien, and that'll probably do you better than some finance book or some marketing book. I don't want to offend anybody. I've written like a real business book before, and I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. You know, I mean, it's a pretty good book. I have written a children's book though for my 5-year-old son.
You wouldn't recommend writing a business book, or you would not recommend your book?
I don't want to recommend my book because that's not what this is about.
I will recommend his book. It's a very good book, and you should read it. Get Backed by Evan Bayer and Evan Loomis.
That's
right. It's a fantastic book. If you're trying to pitch investors, you should definitely read it.
Okay, I feel rebuked, but thank you.
I have my own opinions.
That's funny.
You have your opinions, but no. I mean, it's a very good book. You should read it. So speaking of that, let's talk about that really briefly. So if someone in the audience is going to pitch investors and make a deck, and you have this whole book with learnings from all these amazing pitch decks, what are some kind of top tips for people when they're pitching investors? What should be in their deck, or what should they keep in mind when they're trying to convince people to give them money?
Yeah, there's kind of two things. Is anybody raising money? We've got a few. Anybody that has raised money? Anybody that suspects that one day they will raise money? Okay, so you don't have to be in a startup to raise money. I think the skill set of raising money is pretty universal. There's kind of two big things. One is the artifact. What is the thing that you're putting in front of investors to either get buy-in on or not buy-in on, which is typically the investor presentation or the pitch deck. And I would just say that needs to be killer. And I wrote a book called Get Backed with lots of really good examples of great pitch decks. I think the part that people miss is the people part of fundraising. And there's 3 primary questions that everybody asks when they meet you, whether you like it or not. The first question is, do I like you? The second question is, do I trust you? And the third question is, do I want to do business with you? And what happens when people are raising money is that they try to answer the third question first, which is, I've got a really cool idea. You should invest in me. And they forget likability and trust building. The reason that you get introduced to an investor by mutual connection typically is because that introducee is infusing trust on you as an entrepreneur, because trust takes a long time to build up. And so sometimes if you get a good introduction to an investor, you've got a baseline of trust, but that person still needs to like you. And so I think approaching an investor almost as if you're just trying to start a really good conversation, you're not trying to pitch them on anything, is usually a better heuristic for being a good person and raising money. And so what happens a lot of times is you walk into these meetings, the entrepreneur is obviously kind of sweaty. They're like, I need the money, and they're kind of doing their little entrepreneur dance. And they walk away and the investor forgets about them. So, you want to talk more about that?
Well, so you've been on the other side of the table. You've been on the investor side. What do you look for in founders or founding teams? What's your heuristic? How do you know when you really like someone and want to go forward, or how do you know immediately, because they did this thing, I know I won't invest?
Well, I've made 20 investments, but I would not call myself an investor. I kind of don't really do that anymore because I'm totally focused on Icon right now. And the one thing that I've learned in making investments for 6 years, so please don't take this as the gospel, this is just one prematurely gray hairs man's opinion, is always put your money on the force of nature. And because most of the early stage risk is on the founder, I will not invest in somebody where I can't, in the affirmative, say that person's a force of nature. And what I'm not saying is that person is the most bubbly, extroverted, crazy, person you've ever met. What I am saying is, like, forces of nature come in different shapes and sizes, and to be a really good entrepreneur, you've got to be very curious, and you've got to will something into existence that doesn't exist. Your clothing that you're wearing right now, the chairs that you're sitting on, the watch in your hand, the glasses on your face, were imagined and willed into existence by an entrepreneur at some point. And it's those people that have that kind of like the ability to run through those brick walls that end up building durable businesses, for better or for worse. And the people that are not give up, or they're not curious enough, and or they can't command the respect of a big team to build something valuable. So I would say that would be my one thing that is a non-negotiable.
Any other red flags or risks when you're analyzing a founder or the founding team?
Yeah, this is odd. I've actually never talked about this before, but we talked about this a little bit over lunch the other day. I'm very curious who founders' friends are, and so if I ask a founder who their buddies are, who are your girlfriends, what do you do for fun, and they're kind of like they're like an atomized Lone Ranger personality, that's a big red flag for me. If they've got friends and warm relationships and people vouch for them, that's a very good sign. And I know that sounds kind of like maybe obvious to many of you in the room, but you'd be surprised how many people have like their identity is the thing that they're doing, and because they're this atomized entrepreneur that is just going to do whatever they want to do by themselves, nobody in their right mind would ever want to join that person and join their team. And so you've got kind of the Lone Ranger person that's like a big red flag.
How do you tell the difference between delusional and brilliant?
it's a tough line because, man, yeah, that you want the person to be a little crazy-eyed with their ambition, but that can be there's like crazy-eyed with like the ambition, and then you're like, okay, this person's freaking crazy. Okay, what the hell? Get me out of here. You don't have any friends, so.
Is that where the relational part comes in? To see if they are socially accepted in some way?
Maybe, I don't know. I'm just winging it. I don't know.
Because we have to believe these delusions to a certain extent that we are right and everyone else is wrong to be an entrepreneur, often. So how do we navigate that?
I wouldn't use the word delusion. I think
I was being funny.
Yeah, okay. Well, you are wearing a shirt that says grind on it, so that's funny too.
Don't you like how they appropriated the Nike logo and don't care? Honey Badger don't care. So Nike, anyway.
I think Nike's getting sued right now by somebody because of that.
I wouldn't be surprised if the shirt is illegal.
Good thing we're on video. So
live streamed.
Yeah, I don't know. You know,
or from a personal perspective, it's like something inside of you said, I'm going to be able to 3D print homes and solve homelessness. It sounds crazy, but it's awesome. How do you take the big vision and also break it down into the small and actually move forward and actually convince people to believe your version of the world instead of what most people believe?
Well, if it's like the first principles of physics are fundamentally possible, then the person is not delusional. And I would say all of us in this room are we vacillate. We're emotional beings. We have crazy ideas. We have crazy thoughts. We have, things that come in our imagination that are wild and imaginative and delusional, to use that word. And so maybe all of us, maybe that's like the stroke of brilliance that leads an entrepreneur to find like the golden nugget within some of those crazy thoughts, is kind of just being human and being delusional at times. And so I don't know if that's a bad thing. I'm kind of reversing track on that. In terms of Icon, we looked at a big challenge. There are 1.2 million of our brothers and sisters in this world, 1.2 billion of our brothers and sisters that don't have a home. And we've all grown up with those stats, and we've seen them, and they kind of hit our head and bounce off. And about 3 years ago, I was reading a book with my best friend about Jeff Bezos. And Jeff Bezos asks a question commonly to his employees, which is, what business is going to put us out of business? And then let's go create that business, which is kind of a fun question to ask. And so we were asking that question about Treehouse at the time, and now we're dead. Treehouse is dead. And we were on a flight reading through this book together, and we said, you know what? If robotics has the kind of promise that I think it does, and you could just download and print a house in about 24 hours for half the cost, do you realize what kind of good that we could do in the world? And so that was the delusional idea on a flight, and we said, let's test it. So this is about 2.5 years ago. We started. I'm not an engineer. I'm like one of the few business guys on the team. So if there's anything amazing that's happened at Icon, it has nothing to do with me. Seriously, we've got brilliant people that are making all this magic happen. But we rented a lab in West Austin, and we started building wall sections with a little printer. And the math checked out. It's like, geez, you could extrapolate. You could do a whole house like this. And so for those of you that don't know Icon, we're using a giant 3D printer that deposits concrete layer by layer to build a house out of very resilient material. And if anybody has seen the 3D printed house that we did? Okay, it's kind of cool. It was like the worst one that we're ever going to do, but it's beautiful enough. And Wired Magazine took a really nice photo of it that we have on our website. But we started small and just tinkered, And then we got a customer that gave us $250,000. And so we printed an entire house for $250,000. And kind of the weird thing about this was a week before South by Southwest, we had this technology. We didn't know it was going to work. I called up my friend Taylor, who has a backyard in East Austin. And I said, hey, bro, can I use your backyard to print a house? And he goes, no, you're an idiot, bro. He gave me one of those like, bro things. I was like, damn it. So I was like, all right, what if I gave you $2,000 of rent, which is the cost of your mortgage, for a few months? And if we fail and you have a huge pile of concrete in your backyard, I'll jackhammer it out, and you won't even know that it's there, and you'll still have made money. But if we succeed, I'm going to give you a free house. And he goes, deal. So we had a week, and we printed the house, and there's this beautiful couple that lived in an apartment. And every night they would come out with cigarettes and a six-pack of beer just watching. And they'd yell at us and just give us a hard time because they had no idea what we were doing. They're just like, what are they doing? And it worked. And we 3D printed the first house in America and possibly the world that was 3D printed. It was permitted. It's going to go in the Guinness Book of World Records. And we're just having the time of our life. And so that was a year ago, and ever since then we've kind of had our hair on fire. So,
have you printed more houses since then, or has it all been just work in the lab to perfect things?
Yeah. So since South by Southwest last year, we had we made a little video that went viral, and like 2 billion people saw it. So there's like 1 in 4 beautiful humans that have heard about Icon, which is super humbling. We raised a seed round of capital, $9 million seed, after a few months of kind of doing the investor roadshow thing. Built it, and so we closed the round in October, built a team of 20 engineers over the last 6 months, built the Vulcan 2. The Vulcan 2 is our new printer, and it can do it's big enough to do a 2,000 square foot house. So it's like a real house. And it does it about 3 times as fast. And it's got all kinds of cool sensors on it to make sure that it's safe and all that kind of stuff.
In a nutshell, like, how does it work? Like, how does it do what it does? What are the major components? How can you talk about what the Vulcan does?
Yeah. Has everybody seen the desktop 3D printer before? Okay. So you're taking concrete, in our case. Half the world is made out of concrete. Pound for pound, it's the cheapest and most resilient building material in the world. That's why we use it. You can go to any country in the world, and it's there. So that was important, that if we were going to build a scalable technology company, you could have it. The way that it works is we've got this automatic mixing apparatus that we call the Magma system. We've got a very volcano theme going on. The Magma system batch processes each part of the concrete, mixes it, and pumps it. And the pump is very long. It's hundreds of feet. The pump goes to the robot called the Vulcan, and out comes Lavacrete. We're getting a little too cute, I think, and each layer is deposited layer by layer, and by the time the first layer of the house is done, the next layer the first layer is strong enough for the next layer, and so you can just print continuously. And so right now we can do a house in about 24 hours. And the amount of concrete that we used on our first house was about 10 bags, 10 super sacks full. And if we were to do that again today, it'd be less than $2,000. So it's a magnitude improvement on time and speed and cost and all that kind of stuff. Plus, you can print a Fibonacci spiral, or I could print, an effigy of Damon here.
Could you please do one of those in East Austin?
Yeah, I will.
Maybe Taylor won't mind.
He won't. He'll ask for a lot of money, but yeah.
It's worth it. How do you, is there a human involved in this printing process, or is it all completely automated?
Yeah, we don't believe in humans. I'm just kidding.
Get rid of them.
Yeah.
Robots.
There's a printer operator that, is this interesting to anybody? Okay. I see these giant robots every day when I walk into the office. We call it the Bat Cave. So we walk in there and these like crazy printers, and there's a bunch of people drinking beer, just like, hey, there's a house. There it goes. It's not quite that simple yet, but we hope one day we'll be there. We have printer operators, and a lot of what we're doing, especially as we look at building homes in the developing world, is bringing people here, having them train with us so they can be printer operators in their home countries, go back. So you've got the keys to your car, you know how to operate a printer, crank out those houses, one a day. And it's the only way that we're gonna house 1.2 billion people. Like we can't spend more money or have more political will. This is a technological issue that I think we can break through with this technology. So, yep.
Is your business model to actually sell the printers or actually build a house or training the people, or how are you actually making money out of the business?
Yeah, right now we're just printing houses, and that's how we're making money. It's going to take us a few years to get to the point where we could give you the keys and say, go for it. But we're beginning the training process very soon to make sure that we know how to do that for kind of in-country people. So
We can move on to the Q&A. I can pass this mic around so everyone on the live stream can hear as well. But anyway, I just want to say thank you very much for the conversation and for joining us. It's been awesome. And I'm going to turn it over to the audience and let them kind of ask you some questions. But let's give Evan a big round of applause. Okay, anybody have a question to start off here? Got one burning? All right, here you go.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you. My name's Laura Dean. I'm a native Austinite as well. And I'm curious about your 3D printed homes for local homeless people. Is that in what part of your plan?
yes.
Okay.
And I would be a heretic or a hypocrite if I didn't tell you that it was part of the plan. This is why we started this business, is to solve, I think, the challenges that all of us face on affordability. And whether, it doesn't matter who you are, it's really hard to buy a home in Austin, Texas right now. And so all of us feel the pinch. And we've got to make affordable a reality here in town. And so we're part of that solution. And then for the developing world, people are just living in a cardboard box, and so they just need a home for the first time. So
Marvelous. So that's wonderful. Thank you.
yeah, and you'll keep your eyes open for something in the next couple months here in town. We got a little something up our sleeve that's not public yet. So
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
you bet.
How do you do like rebar and windows and plumbing and all that? Yeah.
Great. Thank you for asking.
Sorry, never mind.
No, it's a great question. Some of the most common questions that we get are, what do you do about the mechanical system? So mechanical, electrical, plumbing. Can you make the walls smooth? You know, so they're not as like textured as they are. Can you 3D print the roof? So with the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, we're testing it. We're just print it inside the wall cavity. So the printer lays the conduit as it's being printed, and so that's the goal. On the first house that we did, we told the city of Austin what we were doing, and they said, "We please just do something normal." And so we said, okay, we'll just print the building, and then we'll have conduit on the inside of the wall. And so that's what we had to do for the first house. But in the future, you know, especially for an American sensibility, you want your electrical socket flush on the wall. You don't want it kind of like this behind you right here on this wall. And this is what you typically have to do with masonry, is have it on the outside because it's concrete. It's really hard stuff. What we hope to do in the future is smooth out the concrete as it's being deposited. And we're not 3D printing the roof right now. I think a good way to think about 3D printing is it expensive, complicated, and takes a long time? Then try to figure out a way to automate it. If it's cheap and quick and easy, you know, a good example is the windows. It's not hard to pick up a window and put it in. So we're not going to automate that process right now. We may in the future, but we just don't need to.
Thank you for coming. This has been very fascinating. My question is regarding locally in Austin, what is the biggest headwind y'all faced for, or currently face, for making this more available and allowing the public to start buying these homes?
It's great. We haven't had any headwinds yet. I hope they never come. But because housing is one of the most highly regulated markets on the planet, we're kind of getting ready for those challenges in the future. So we haven't had them yet. I've got my hat is off to the city of Austin. I mean, they permitted the first 3D printed house in the world here in Austin. I mean, and Austin is not an easy place to get permitting, and they did it. And so the mayor's behind us. He keynoted our event. The Secretary of HUD came in our office 2 weeks ago. We've had some 4 stars from the Air Force and senators and congressmen and women that have come through, and all of them have been very supportive. The one thing that we want to pay attention to is we do not want this to be a partisan issue at all. Housing is not something that should get like co-opted by the left or the right, and I don't think this ever will, but that's something that we as a team, anytime we have a Republican in, we try to bring in a Democrat just to make sure that we're weaving this very carefully so that it doesn't get politicized, for lack of a better word. The regulations that are probably in the pipeline there's going to be some regulation on 3D printing, like how there just needs to be code on how it should be done in the future. So we expect that. And the people that have been making a lot of money building homes slowly and unaffordably are probably going to get pissed. And so we're expecting that too. And one of our biggest investors is the largest home builder in the United States called D.R. Horton. And so maybe we can kind of fight that battle with them. But we'll see. I'm optimistic about the American will, because this is just the power of technology in particular doesn't need to be bridled. Like I think we need to like see its full manifestation for us to get the benefit of it, you know. Mm-hmm. I'd also love to learn about any startups in the room or what's on your mind. So, yes, sir. We have not. Do you do furniture?
I talked to him.
You have? Okay.
He's got my card.
Okay, awesome. This guy. Yeah, that was the easiest thing I've ever done. There are a lot of people that are trying to take our technology and say, hey, will you come do this application with it? Will you do a retaining wall or a pool or some furniture? And right now, organizationally, we are just laser focused on solving homelessness. That is what gets us up in the morning, and that's why we do what we do. And I think we'll be able to do some of the things like what you're talking about down the road, but we may not even be the best person to do that. Like we're really just home builders at the end of the day. There may be more nuanced and creative and fast solutions like his that can deliver like cool furniture, not concrete furniture. So, yeah.
Well, I look forward to getting a 3D printed home sometime. Well, we employ people that are coming out of the criminal justice system, so we are feeling what it's like for them to be stuck in Austin. With a criminal background record, you don't get to pick anywhere you want to live. You get taken advantage of, and so they're in that situation where homeless people are. And so we've been talking about a community for our employees, and that's kind of why I came, was to see, could we build these homes someday in Austin?
Wouldn't that be fun? Yeah. I would love to do that with you one day. And I think one of the fun things about this technology is like, let's bring it to the people that need it the most first. And you better believe those folks that are previously incarcerated are feeling the pain of not being able to get into an apartment because the landlord won't let them because of their background. And by golly, please give me your card, and it would be fun to do that one day. We're not quite there yet, but I love what I just heard, and I love that you're employing those people. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Great question. Yeah, so the cool thing is, up to 2,000 square feet, you can do anything you want, any home you want. In fact, we're talking with some of the world's best architects to design houses for people that need them the most. Yves Bahar. I mean, we can throw out some names here, but they can be whatever they want because it's just a digital design file. So you send the file to the printer, you turn on your iPhone, you select the house that you want, and you push print. And it prints until it stops to the drop. And that's not cool just because it rhymes. It's just more green that way. You don't need to waste material. If you've been to a construction site, you've seen that there's more waste than house. And in this case, the waste on our first house was enough to put in a wheelbarrow. It was really amazing. We were like, oh my God. It's there it is. It's really neat. Yep. Can we use the mic, please? Yep.
Are y'all focusing more on the U.S. or developing markets, developing countries most?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, we're fighting all the battles because it's all the battles are worth fighting. We're going to be doing projects here in Austin, in Texas, and then we're going to be doing projects overseas. We don't want to go do projects immediately in some faraway country because logistically that's really hard. And so we're going to be spending most of our time here in Austin perfecting the technology. And then as it gets perfected, we'll start spreading our wings a little bit.
My question was, sorry, it's loud. What about the foundation for the buildings? Do you guys pour a traditional foundation first and then come back and build on top of that, or actually are you able to 3D print the foundation as well?
Yeah, I would love to 3D print the foundation in the future, but right now we start with a very traditional foundation and then we print the house right on top. Foundations are well priced and pretty affordable. So that's not something that we really need to solve organizationally right now.
Okay.
We asked the city of Austin if we could do that, and they're like, please, just take a deep breath.
So you're talking about the building of the building. Could you also talk about what it takes to connect with the funding sources and the demand side on how you're going to connect with the homeless population, or the agencies or groups that represent them? What are you doing with that, or what do you see?
Do you represent one of these groups?
Nope.
Okay. I was hoping you'd say, yes, I'm from Fannie Mae, and here we go. We're going to be doing the first 3D printed mortgage with one of the largest financing companies in the United States. So we're beginning that right now. If you have a beautiful home and you can't get a bank loan for it, there's a problem. So we're beginning that process. And in fact, I'm going up to Washington, D.C. in a couple weeks to meet with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to kind of nail down some of the logistics. But the things that, when we were talking with Secretary Carson a couple weeks ago, the thing that keeps him up at night and the thing that keeps our underwriting organizations up at night is home supply. After the housing crisis in 2008, we had 100,000 builders, like home building companies. After the crisis, we had 50,000 because most people said the view isn't worth the climb. We're out of this game. We lost all our money. Our families are hurt. We're not doing this ever again. And so we're short-sighted in America on both the amount of people that can do this, and a lot of tradespeople are getting old and leaving as well. So we've got a real supply constraint. And so making sure that the financing is lined up to fuel the robots that are going to start cranking out all these amazing homes is kind of a linchpin issue for us. But I don't think it's going to be an issue. Yes. Damon's going to get really angry if you don't speak into the mic.
So
Yeah. What if he was like laying out, passed out over there? Would that be kind of weird for everybody? Okay, sorry. Back to you.
So I have a question about, the traditional home builders. Because you might be big competition for them in the future or currently, do you see them, throwing anything your way, or do you see any roadblocks ahead? Especially because they have a lot more money than you. Like, what could they do to maybe hinder your growth as a business? And how do you look at that and try to anticipate what they could do?
Are you with a big builder?
No.
Okay.
I actually work for Austin Energy.
Oh, awesome. That's great. We love Austin Energy. I think with competition, the way that I've always imagined competition, and we don't really have any pure play competitors at this point, is that it's healthy for you to imagine that they're smarter than you, that they're probably better than you, and they have more money. And if you imagine that those things are true, you end up making better decisions and being a little bit scrappier and urgent and out of the box and stuff like that. So it's going to happen. But the organizations that don't keep me up at night are the ones that I know about. It's the amazing entrepreneurs that are going to help solve this problem with Icon. Where it's the old way of putting up sticks and drywall is just very slow, very time consuming and overpriced. It's called drywall because it can't ever get wet. And I'm not trying to be funny when I say that. It's like when you think about resilient housing, especially in the areas that are affected by hurricanes and stuff like that, you've got to have a different paradigm shift. So yeah, we'll see. I think what's going to happen over the next 10 years is there's going to be a lot more companies like Icon that are going to be doing really crazy and cool stuff, and it's going to change the game and all of us are going to be better for it. So it'll be super fun to see. So I think kind of what happened with desktop printing about a decade ago, where it just kind of blew up. Now we got metal printers and titanium printers, and this guy's got a printer that prints so fast. If you put your hand in there, it would knock it off. I'm just kidding. You don't want to do that. That's the goal. But you're breaking through some technological barriers that have been in this industry for a while. So I think it's going to be real fun to see. So.
Let me follow up with that. I'm with the Texas Association of Business and the Texas Chamber of Commerce. And so we have a situation in Texas where automobiles are only sold by dealers. The automobile lobby wants to keep the automobile dealers out of the business of selling cars. So when it comes to, Evan, your major home builders that across the country that might give you pushback, it's also the trades and the plumbers and the electricians and the unions that if you're able to build something that easy, it puts them all out of business.
I don't disagree with that, and we have to build so many millions of homes to catch up that what I've never heard any builder say, we talked to all the big builders in Texas, is like, by golly, we got too many people on the team. They are fighting tooth and nail for talent right now, and they can't even keep up with demand. And so if we're and we're not putting people out of business. You still have a plumber, you still have an electrician. We're automating the process of the house that takes a long time, and can be done in about a day, and just makes the trades a little faster. So there's still a kitchen that needs to go in. There's still lighting and all those types of beautiful things to make it a home. We can't 3D print cabinetry. And so so far we haven't had that issue with tradespeople. They've all been super nerded out, to use tech word, to work on this, and they're very excited about it. But that would be like a dystopian, sad future if that was the case.
That's worst case scenario.
It is.
But it will happen to some degree, just like robots are taking people's jobs away and unions are coming back strong. And so there's several levels, as we talked about over here just earlier, that lobbyists for the home builders, lobbyists for the unions can come in and try to enact laws, make it harder to build these homes. And anyway, I'm in complete support of what you're doing.
Yeah,
because
It's a good. It's happened, before. But if you can promise me if I join the Texas Chamber that this will never happen, then I'll sign on the dotted line
there
right
you
now.
go. Well, I'm gonna raise your flag for you and with you.
That's fine. Thank you.
I'll ask a quick question on the way over there. So I don't know if anyone else felt like me, but just kind of getting chills as you're talking about the scope of the magnitude of the problem, and then even the ways that it feels like you're as you're kind of talking about, coming with such purpose to meet that need. It makes me even think kind of down the road. So let's say, I'm assuming this is going to be, work really well, and lots of people are going to want to do this. 20 years down the road, you've got a lot of these 3D printed houses. And it almost makes our current building kind of seem like temporary in comparison, right? You've got wood and drywall and all this stuff that you want to move a wall, you want to take down a wall, it's really easy to do. You want to get behind that wall and see the electrical, it's really easy to do. Compared to, let's say 20 years down the road, we have all these houses that are 3D printed out of concrete and not so movable, which is great in, majority world or developing world. Maybe not so great with the American mindset of, I want this house to be mine and I'm going to reshape it and to fit me. So how do you think about, I know it's 20 years down the road, 10 years, whatever, but these things are durable and they're meant to be durable and that's good. But in what ways do you feel like that's actually going to come back and bite us? It's, it's concrete, it's not going to be like asbestos, right? And some of the issues with that, but it's more of maybe, are people going to coming bulldozing these things, and you have all this concrete that you need to do something with, right? So have you thought about that? Kind of what's the next step?
Yeah, that would be another dystopian future.
Yeah.
Is that we succeed and make the world worse.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ways to fall off the horse here, I guess. That one feels pretty bad too, because I might as well just stop what I'm doing if that's the future. I don't believe that it is, but there's we're not even in the first chapter of this, and so for me to imagine the homes that we're doing today, if we're just doing the same thing 20 years from now, there may be some of those issues where it's like, I want to knock down this wall, but I can't because it's concrete. Well, you can. There's masonry is everywhere. And this building that we're in is concrete, and half the world's made out of concrete. So it's a material that we know a lot about, and you can change it. You can add on to that house. Stick-built homes need to be replaced about every 30 to 40 years. That's not sustainable. Concrete domes in Italy are still standing 2,000 years later. So there is a permanence to them, but you can recycle the stuff if you need to add on to the house. And I think this is really going to, if these homes are going to be longer term homes and more sustainable in this regard, I think it's going to change the design of how homes are constructed and made. And what that may mean is that the outside of the house is 3D printed with concrete that's more permanent, and the inside is drywall. And you can always change the inside of the house if you want to change it up a little bit. So there's probably some permutations there, but again, in 20 years from now, we think we might actually be able to solve homelessness in like 30 years. So in 20 years, you and I could be drinking a beer at a bar somewhere and be like, you know what? We've put 1 billion humans in homes, and they're very durable homes, and they're homes that are going to last a really long time. And the secondary consequences of first world problems of my kitchen needs to be bigger, we can fix the bigger kitchen issue. Like, we're going to fix that. The worst issue, and the only reason we exist as a company, is to solve the mom and the baby and the dad that are in a cardboard box right now. And it's if you think about it long enough, it'll like really get you going. And the only metric of success for us as a company is not all this stupid social media, and we've got a lot of it recently. It's a house and a family inside a house, and that's all that matters. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of Twitter crap. And we love social media, and I don't say that as like a criticism, but there's just so much information that is like swirling around that we're all kind of wrapped up in, and yeah. So, but I love that question, and I pray that never happens. If I have a third question that's dystopian, I'm just kidding. Go.
So both Riley and I have purchased your book. Find it very useful myself. So I don't know if you have a moment to tell us what inspired you to write that book. And by the way, you know, what you're doing is just really incredible and very inspiring. And then my second question is, do you envision some additional industry coming up around what you're doing to support the building of these?
Yeah, that's great. Good question. So I wrote a book called Get Backed that was published by Harvard Business Press. And the premise of the book is to basically help first-time entrepreneurs raise a bunch of money at the right valuation without ruining their marriage and without destroying their soul. Because I did when I was raising money for the first time. So in my first venture called Treehouse, I raised about $8 million for our seed round, our A round. And I met with 300 investors, and I was so damn bad at it. And I collected all the negative self-talk that I collected along the way and all the things that I wish I had done differently. And by the time I got done raising money, I had hundreds of entrepreneurs that started emailing me saying, hey, how did you raise money? Because we raised a lot of money during the nation's like worst housing crisis at that time. So it was like a little extra hard to raise money, I guess. And so I started sending these entrepreneurs long emails on what I thought they might do to like help raise the money. And I'd send them investor presentations that I thought were really beautiful and well done. And so after a while, I had enough emails to turn into a book. And so we turned it into a book, and I sent it to Harvard as kind of a joke. And then they emailed back a week later, and they said, can we give you $100,000 for this? And I was like, dude, these are just my emails I've been giving away for free. Anyway, I've never seen $1 of that because the royalties, you know, just all that stuff. But that was the genesis. I love people. And each of you has like an amazing capacity for like dreams and companies that are going to make the world better. And so like my wife gets upset with me because I'll stay up way late in the night just like emailing an entrepreneur, trying to give them a little encouragement or help them out a little bit, help them get fundraising. And it's because I know how hard it is. And so I just have like a lot of empathy for, you know, the creative class that are starting businesses. I think if we're successful, to your second question, by the way, I'm on LinkedIn, and I know I can't, you know, do all this kind of stuff, but if I can be of support in any way to your dreams, please enlist me as an ally. Because Austin needs more Damon Clinkscales, and my goal in life is to be like 1% of how amazing this man is, and just how helpful and generous he is to our city. So if I can be supportive, I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm usually pretty communicative. In terms of the overall ecosystem with Icon, I think if we are successful, there's going to be a bunch of innovators that kind of jump on the platform and figure out how to make kitchens more affordable, and how to figure out how to make plumbing better, and how to add solar roofs, how just to do all that kind of stuff to make a beautiful, more better house. Because we're just doing the shell, you know, we're kind of a one-trick pony. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Let her go. I didn't see you.
Okay.
Sorry.
No worries. On an internal side of your business, what has it been like, growth and hiring and filling needs that you didn't know you would have, and what's that been like for you?
It was really challenging for me as a non-technologist to hire technology people. So I did most of the hiring for our teams. We had hired 20, mostly mechanical, mechatronics, control systems, electrical engineers. And I don't have any friends that are those people. I just didn't have a lot of mechanical engineering friends. And all that. And so it was a hard process, and it took me about 2 months to figure out. And so I'd bump into a guy like this who's a mechanical engineer and sounds really smart, and I'd be like, hey man, do you got any buddies that are on the hunt? And so you just end up building your Rolodex that way. But I wouldn't say I'm very good at it, so I wouldn't listen to too much of what I'm saying. We decided that we wanted to feel the pain of hiring all of our people, and so we did not hire a recruiting firm, although that would have been the easy hit the steroid button and just like get a bunch of good names. We wanted to like build that muscle memory ourselves, and so we kind of chose the hard path, but I think it's going to pay off in the long run. I think recruiters are great. I just don't know if startups at their earliest stages need to hire a recruiting firm right off the bat. So.
Should I go ahead?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Hey.
So I know that you mentioned that you and your friend kind of came up with this idea. How did you go from the idea to like figuring out what the correct type of printer was to get, especially if you didn't have like a, engineering background? How did you do that?
There's a third co-founder that is R. Thomas Edison, and his name is Alexander Leroux. He's a Frenchman. Sorry, he's of Canadian descent, but he's of French ancestry. That is our brilliant CTO. And so me and a guy named Jason Ballard, I'm the chairman of the company. Jason is the CEO, and we have a CTO named Alex. And Alex is the gentleman that figured that out. He is the kind of the third leg of the stool on this. So, okay. And please trust me when I say this, like all credit for the invention and what we're doing, technologically speaking, is his. He's like 26 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
So with your goal of trying to help, with the homelessness issue, how do you want to fund that? And when I know that you said there's going to be something coming up soon, but do you plan on like that happening this year? And how are you going to fund that? Are you just like, do you have like a model, like, okay, I'm going to have this much revenue, maybe a percentage of that is going to go towards helping the homeless? And what's your growth percentage like year over year? Like, how do you think about all those things?
No, it's a great question. We made a decision when we started this startup studio that we wouldn't start a new business without an anchor customer. And so from day one at Icon, we had a customer called New Story. They are a charity, which is crazy to get seed funding from a charity. The charities are always the ones asking you for money, and they give us the money. It's messed up. But they were our first customer. They gave us enough money to do the first house. They've given us enough money to go do hundreds of houses. The homes that we're going to do here in Austin at an undisclosed location and undisclosed time are paid for by customers. So people want these homes. And so we're going to fuel the growth of the company. I don't know our growth percentage rate. I hope it's a lot, but we're fueling the growth by people that are saying, I want a half-price house in one day. Who doesn't? And so that's going to kind of get. We may decide to raise a larger round of venture capital to help us grow faster technologically. But right now, we don't need to raise any external money. So did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
It does. And then I guess like over time, then you'll kind of get a flow of like, okay, what's going on, and you can like anticipate what's going to happen, or basically the demand, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
And one thing that I believe is true is nobody knows what they're doing. I don't know what I'm doing. Do you? No. Nobody knows what they're doing.
Learn as you go.
We're all freaking figuring it out. And that's like really beautiful when you kind of let go of that thing. And so I know what I'm doing for the next few months. And then after that, I'm going to need to figure it out. And because life is improv. Like you just can't plan it unless you work at like a entrenched agency, and it's not going to, like the IRS or something. Like, as an entrepreneur, you wake up and every day's a new day.
So are these homes available to like us if we wanted to buy one currently, or is that still not the case?
Some of our initial kind of seed capital and that we raise, we're doing the initial homes with them. And then we'll open it up for opportunities like yourself. We're not quite there yet, but if you're interested, let me know, and we can kind of put you in the queue.
Yes, I would love that.
So
Who's next?
Thank you so much. The Treehouse was an amazing store, and I certainly miss it every day. I'm sure a lot of people just adored it and miss it every day. It's still in Dallas, right?
the whole thing died.
The whole thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any? Do you think that there's a chance for it to come back to life? Because everything about it was perfection. I don't understand even why it died.
It's a much longer story that we should talk about over beers.
Okay.
Yeah.
It would just be wonderful if it was back. That's all.
Yeah. Yes. If this conversation wasn't recorded, I would share something. But, you know, in my mind, businesses die for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't delighting customers enough to make it profitable. Amazon just put a real pinch on retailers.
Mm.
And so it's a hard business to run. I think it could have worked in a lot of different directions. The 2 stores in Dallas in particular were doing amazing. The store in Austin was doing okay. It was kind of a bad location. But we may resurrect that thing one day. But it's mostly just me and my co-founder dreaming.
Understood. It was wonderful, though.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What was the concept of Treehouse?
Yeah. No, it's fine. It was a store down at the Westgate Shopping Center by the Central Market, and it is a Whole Foods version of Home Depot. If you can imagine that. Another way to say it is like, what would happen if Patagonia employees took over Home Depot? Is kind of what you get. So it's less Bob Marley hippie than you might be thinking, and more Apple, smart, solar, sustainability. Is it healthy? Carpets, paints, kitchens, all that kind of stuff. It was a really beautiful store, and I'm proud of it, even though we failed. And it's fun to say you failed, because it's good for me.
Given
Yes.
that your goal is to solve homelessness, and there's some really innovative nonprofits in Austin
Yep.
who have incredible solutions that the country hasn't seen before, right? Community First Village with Mobile Loaves and Fishes and Austin Foundation Communities. Are you guys in communication with some of these nonprofits who are tackling homelessness in different ways? And if so, have those relationships been helpful?
Yes, we definitely know Alan Graham at Community First Village. Has everybody heard of Community First? It's so cool what they're doing. If you've been out there, it's like just freaking awesome. And that is one of the most innovative approaches to homelessness in the entire United States, and it's right here in Austin. And so if you haven't been, I'd highly encourage you to go. It's a
They
little
have
bit.
movie nights like every Friday, is it?
Yeah,
That's open to the like Alamo Draft House, outdoor Alamo Draft House. That's open for the whole, like anyone who wants to come.
Yep. And if you've met Alan Graham, he is a force of nature. And so if you're kind of wondering what a force of nature felt like, it's like him. It's like a very irreverent but very spiritual human being. It's funny. He like goes from praying to like cursing at one of the people, and like it's like, okay, this is how we do it here. Yeah, we are in touch. We're not in touch with foundations communities like Walter Moreau's deal, but we'd love to be. We're just kind of fighting our technological battles right now. So, but if anybody knows them, we'd love to get connected. So, are you my girl? Okay, awesome. Sandy also knows everybody in the back, so if I'm ever in a pinch, she's my lifeline.
So, Evan, your timeline for aligning with developing countries, what's that look like?
When you say aligning with developing countries, what do you mean?
Well, you talked earlier about maybe a couple of years out, refining what you're doing here locally and then going into developing countries. Are you already in talks with some governments, or are you able to even discuss that?
Yeah, we had, after we launched, we had 1 million homes requested, and a lot of them were from governments that wanted to provide safe, beautiful, resilient housing for their people. We couldn't like boil the ocean. So we picked a few governments to kind of begin conversations with, and we're in talks with one right now. We're in talks with a lot of them, but one is more active. And so what we've committed to is doing a Latin American pilot this year. And so we'll be doing something very, very soon. And our opinion is a lot of times the startup community kind of announces from the rooftops what they're doing, and then they may fail or succeed. And so we're not pointing like Babe Ruth to left field saying we're going to hit it out. We're only going to celebrate it kind of after the fact, just to like reduce the hype and keep everybody humble. So, but we'll be doing something this year, here and there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you currently have investment from other countries? I think I read something.
Yeah, we did not take any capital from other countries because we want to work with the U.S. humanitarian organizations. And sometimes if you've got foreign direct investment, it precludes you from working with the U.S. government in a certain way. So we just have private investors that are a part of it.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Sort of to follow up on some of the issue of homelessness, there are a number of college students that are really housing crunched. A lot of times they don't have a place to live, or they sleep on somebody's couch. They've got a tremendous amount of debt. They don't necessarily know where their next meal is going to come from. When you look at income inequality, an ability to have an education really gives you an opportunity to go further in life. Have you really had any discussions with some of the community colleges or universities where there is a significant problem with that area? Some of the universities have showers, other things like that, because they know that the people that go to school don't necessarily have a home.
I've only heard of that problem before, but I've not talked to anybody that's like either a student that can't afford a house and is in a homeless or a transitional, like sleeping on the couch situation. But if you know anybody, I'd like to learn more about that. The good thing is our technology is agnostic and our mission is universal. And so applying the tech to serve the needs of a college student is as easy as, a family on the east side or the west side. So yeah, we want to get there. We're also not going to solve, I don't know if we can print buildings. We can print houses. Buildings are pretty darn efficient the way that they're currently done. And so I don't know if there's any more meat on the bone for innovations in that. So there's certain things that we can do and certain things that we can't. We're not against modular. There's a lot of other really amazing companies out there that do modular homes, pre-built homes. They're awesome. Out of the pie, we just handle kind of a little sliver of it. So, yeah.
Have you thought about integrating anything within your company maybe later down the line, right? So you want to solve the homelessness issue. You mentioned you want to train people to be able to do this, on their own. But what if you had some type of a program where you're training the person that's like homeless and needs like a new job to be able to learn?
Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
I've never heard that idea. I love that idea.
There you go.
Yeah, let's start working on that. Beautiful technology is usable technology, and I think if we can build the technology elegantly, then we can train anybody to use it and to be a printer operator and to build homes.
Yep.
So that's a good idea. You may have just given me $1 million idea right there.
You can throw some my way if you want to.
That's right. Yeah. Give you some equity. Here we go. Damon, how are we on time?
It is 8:20.
Okay. I have 3 beautiful kids, and I promised my wife that I would tuck them in bed tonight, so I need to go. I've got a 5-year-old boy, a 3-year-old girl, and a 1-year-old named Mac. and they're just the best. And so I try not to like do too many nights away. So I'm gonna go kiss him on the forehead and tell him I love him, if that's okay. So this really means a lot that you were here, and I feel really honored. And so I hope we can. I'm gonna be in Austin for at least the next 40 to 50 years. That's how much I plan on living. So I look forward to building a friendship with you, and I'm on LinkedIn, and I would love to rub shoulders down the road. So thank you, Damon.
Thank you so much. I'll take that. All right. And thanks to everyone for coming. We're going to hang out for a bit more. I think Evan does need to go, as he said, but we're going to have some time to chat some more with each other. So appreciate you all coming.